Well, once again, for those of you who were not in the room last time or in the time before that when I was introducing myself, I'm Final Draft with Everfree Radio, and once again I've been asked to briefly moderate this panel a little bit. And to my right and to your left is Charlotte Fullerton.
Hi.
I'm going to ask the same question of you that I asked of the other two writers.
Oh dear, was I paying attention? Uh-oh.
That was my question. No, I'm going to just basically ask, how did you get into writing for cartoons?
In general, or get into
in general,
industry at all? Well, I'm from a small town in Massachusetts. Has absolutely nothing to do with the entertainment industry. I have no family connections or anything like that, and I just always wanted to work in children's television. When I was a little girl, I'm a huge fan to this day of the Muppets, old school Muppets and Sesame Street, and that's what I wanted to do was write children's television. So whenever, especially children, come up and ask me, oh, how do I do this? I'm like, hey, there's nothing particularly special about me, and I'm doing it, and I'm from Nowheresville, so it can be done. Yeah, I told friends back home, same thing. Like, wow, I'm pinching myself every day. This is really my life? I do this? Oh my God. I remember, okay, I'll try it. Sorry, I keep forgetting. I see these two mics here and forget that you guys are not benefiting from them.
We're working on it. They're on.
Or is it blame the AC?
Oh.
Blame the AC, yeah. Curse you, AC.
A movie one time told me to blame Canada. I don't know if I should do that.
Good one.
That I do every day.
He's right here if anybody wants to.
Well, anyway, so
yeah, so I'm living the dream. I mean, I can't believe if I could go back in time and talk to my little girl self and say this would be your real grown-up life someday. I just would have been a hell of a lot more relaxed as a kid. Like, really, this is you can do this? Wow. And yeah, I mean, I grew up in, like I say, small town New England, but I read George Lucas's biography, Skywalking, and it said he went to USC Film School, and I didn't know USC from football and from the marching band. I didn't know anything about it. It's like, well, that's where George Lucas went to film school, and I was a huge old school Star Wars fan, so I guess that's where I'm going. I didn't even know that there were other options or something else I should be pursuing. Like, well, I'm going to USC Film School, and my parents like, what? But they're incredibly supportive, for a couple of people, again, who have nothing to do with the entertainment industry. And going from small town to big city, Los Angeles, it was extreme culture shock, overwhelming. But luckily for me, something happened in between. And I can't even believe it as I'm saying it. It's another one of those pinch me, I can't believe I'm telling my own life story here. But I had the very distinctive, great good fortune to get to meet Jim Henson, who by random chance was speaking at MIT. My older brother was an engineering major there, undergrad. And Jim Henson was doing like a college tour or something, speaking, kind of like this, but in an obviously much bigger auditorium because he's Jim Henson. And I'm a huge Muppets fan, and my brother called home and said, yeah, I know you like the Muppets and everything, and Jim Henson's going to be speaking here tonight, and do you want, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like begging my dad, please, please, please drive me to Boston. I'll never ask you for anything again as long as I live. Please, 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 please. And we did, and saw him give a talk much like this, and I knew it was going to be his birthday. It was actually right around this time of year. It was September 18th of 1984, and his birthday was September 24th, which I always remembered because it's the same as my grandma's. And I brought him a birthday card, thinking I could give it to maybe I give it to somebody, or give it to an assistant, to a secretary, whatever, and eventually get it to him. And then I can that's enough for me, I'll be happy. Well, he, of course, did a Q&A, and you'd never know it because I never shut up now. People don't believe me, but I was super shy as a kid, especially around grown-ups. I mean, in the house, I know everybody, but I would never, speak up. So and the college kids are grown-ups to you when you're a kid, too, obviously. And so people are asking questions like, will you do, Kermit's voice, for me? Will you do Ernie's voice? And I asked a really specific question about Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas and one particular shot when they're rowing down the river, because I didn't know about radio. This is pre-digital. I didn't know about radio control as an option. And And then like nobody else asked a question. I'm like, I got a million questions. I'm like right in the front row. And I got another one, and I can't even remember it, but it was another very specific about that one shot when you whatever. And then when he asked if anybody wanted autographs, lined up next to the stage, I'm like, shunk, I'm there first front row, and I'm still, I don't know what to say. This is Jim Henson. Oh my God. And I give him his birthday card, and he's like, oh, that's really nice. He gives me a hug, and I mean, he was a dad. He had 5 kids. You could totally tell he was just, super genuine. He had no reason to be, and extra nice to me. Again, I'm not a nobody. It's not like my dad owns Paramount or something. You didn't have to kiss up. And so I had an Art of the Muppets book from the Children's Museum in Boston that the Art of the Muppets exhibit had done a tour, and so he signed that, and I gave him his birthday card, and thanks. So we go to leave, and and he remembered me from the audience as having asked these questions, and I seemed really interested. So we leave, and there's this whole line of college kids, and as we're going back to the car, I'm like, I can't believe I blew it, I choked, I should have asked, I have a million things I want to ask him, and this is as close as I'm ever going to get, this is what I want to do with my life, and, I just, I wish we could take him out for coffee or something, and I could, could talk to him. My dad says, well, why don't we get back in line, and you can ask him if he wants to go out to have coffee with us. I'm like, I can't ask Jim Henson to come have coffee with me and my dad. Are you crazy? And he said, what is he going to do? Take out a gun and shoot you? The worst he's going to do is say no, right? So I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Oh my God. And I'm like, get back in line. And I'm like staring at my shoes the whole time. And now I think, he's looking eye to eye with my dad. And must have, but at the time it's like, and he recognized me, oh, you're backing. I'm like, yeah, I wonder if it's too much trouble if, and you're probably really busy and, have to get on a plane. But, if you want to have coffee with my dad and me so we can talk. He said, well, sure, that sounds like it'll be fun. And he left with us. We could have kidnapped him if we wanted to. I mean, like, who are we? So I'm like, oh my God, now we're walking back out to the parking lot where we just were. Only Jim Henson's with us, and I'm carrying Kermit the Frog in with basically like a lighting kit, but with Henson Associates stickers on it, and I'm like, this is, and took him back to his hotel and hung out, in the hung around hotels, like this, but in the lobby where they, off the lobby where they have, bar, restaurant, one of those kind of things, and sat around and talked. And this again was September of '84, so they were in pre-production on Labyrinth, which he told me at the time, this movie he was doing with George Lucas and David Bowie, and they were still in production on Fraggle Rock, because he had said, oh yeah, well, this isn't Boston, if we're shooting in Toronto, and if you're ever, around there in the neighborhood, you should stop by and see what we're doing. And I still regret it to this day that we did not we had to drive to Toronto and just randomly stop by and say, Jim said to see how we're doing. But I did end up, people were coming over asking for his autograph and stuff. I'm like sitting there, oh, Jim Henson. He gave me his address in New York and said at work, and said to write personal on it so that it would get to him and not to his, secretary wouldn't open it. And so I was just sort of, that's enough, as far as the story goes, he could have just shaken my hand or signed the book, and I would have been equally as excited telling this story. He just went so far above and beyond. I can't even believe it. Like, who does that? And I'd never met anybody. If they had comic book conventions, and I'm sure they must have in Boston, I never went to them, or I never had any connection whatsoever with like this. I didn't know any. I had never gotten autographs from writers or any creators. It was this one-time thing, and so during the course of the year, against this fall, I did send a Christmas card and just update on just little what I'm doing with my life kind of thing, how things are going. I'm delivering newspapers for a living here as a kid. And it gets to be April of that year, '85, and I only remember it because we had an unseasonably tremendous snowstorm, like in the middle of April. They sent us home from school and it took hours, like all the snow. And phone rings, and I'm sitting up in my room playing guitar, and my little brother, the class clown, comes in and says, Jim Henson's secretary on the phone for you from England. I'm like, sure it is, sure. And I'm going to get, it's one of your buddies, and I'm going to get on the phone, and you're going to say, hi, got you fished in. So I get on there, and it's Jim Henson's secretary on the phone for England saying, well, yeah, Jim had said, we're getting settled in over here, and he said to give you a call and see if you were going to be, coming over to check things out. And I'm like, what? Am I going to be coming over to check things out? Hey, sorry, this is one of my dear old friends, Mike Brackfeld, and his wife, Tina, from, hey, if any of you watched Masked Rider on Fox Kids, this is Purvis, is that? Yes. I still have the autographed picture of you and Paul Pastori gave me back then. Hey, it's so good to see you. Hi, good to meet you, Tina. Sorry, guys. I haven't seen them in years. I've never met Tina. Sorry. I'm
No.
Sorry, I'm distracted from the Jim Henson story. Like, my husband said, always open with the Jim Henson story. We've been dating for a long time before he was like, I can't believe you never told me the Jim Henson story. I can't believe it's true. When I tell it, it just gets me excited all over again. So I ended up, I'm in school. It's April. I can't just go. So I had to wait till summer vacation. And I deliver newspapers. I don't have money to go to. I've never been to summer camp. I can't go to England. So I asked my parents, please, just let me go. I'll never ask for anything again as long as I live. Please. And to their credit, they let me go out of the country. And it's the first time in my life that I have ever had anybody waiting for me at the airport with my name, like on a sign, which somebody did for me here, Elaine, the other day. But, having some stranger pick me up in the car and take me to the hotel where all the Muppeteers were staying. And then they brought me to the set every day for 2 weeks in August of '85. And I was there when they were shooting Humongous, the junk part, and Humongous, the doors that close and turn into this single character that steps out and fights them. And then the Goblin City beyond that, I was there for that whole shoot, and I got to be one of the goblins on the wall when they first get there. The movie Labyrinth, and it seems to be abandoned, and then little puppets pop up on the wall, and then others come marching down, and the battle begins. Well, I'm one. My puppet head, he's one of the short ones, and has a round head with like a spike on top of the helmet and a little slit. You can only see the eyes, and it was amazing. And my other little contribution to Labyrinth is that there are milk bottles on the doorstep of the castle when they finally get there, because when we were shooting it, I had nothing to do with it. I was just sitting there going, oh my God, it's David Goals. Oh my God, it's Kevin Clash. It's Steve Whitmire. These are my heroes. But before lunch, they shot this of the characters getting to the castle. And in England, they had milk bottles for real, like just around, that you pour into coffee or whatever, like old-fashioned ones. So you pop the top with your thumbs, but you had to shake it up first because there's like cream on top. And I said, he's got a baby in the castle now. He'd have milk delivered. You ought to have milk on the doorstep. And Jim was like, that's a great idea. So after lunch, we shot it. They shot it the other way also, and that's what ended up in the film. Like, yay, the milk bottles are my contribution to the film. So, and then apparently, and this is diverting from writing for cartoons and things, but I jokingly offended David Bowie at lunch by not knowing who he was. He used to, people screaming and yelling, and sitting back to back with him at a table full of puppeteers. And I was more like, oh my God, Kevin J. Clash. I watched him on The Great Space Coasters, Brutal Gorilla, and then and on Captain Kangaroo, he played himself and Artie's uncle. And I was like, oh my gosh, and now this is pre-Elmo, and just pre-Elmo, or his participation in Elmo '85. So I was just like blown away. And the puppeteers are all kind of like elbowing each other, and I'm like, what, do I have something in my teeth? I'm like, no, go on. So I'm just gushing over the Muppeteers, and then like, who's been sitting back to back with you this whole time going, and I'm like, no, David Bowie. And I'm like, oh, and like, I don't even believe them. So they go and look and see where everybody's kind of signed in for this. It was on the lot, but it's sort of fancy dining. I would never be in a place like that otherwise. Even today, I'm not good enough for that. And it's like Mr. Gold's table, Mr. Bowie. Oh, and okay. Apparently, all afternoon he was telling the crew in the bog of eternal stench on stage 2 that there's this kid sitting back to back with me. Usually, I can't fight people off. It wouldn't give me the time of day. It cares more about the Muppeteers. Yep. Yep.
You ever consider contacting him again? Just saying, hey, I was that kid?
I don't. I guess unless I was going to hire him to do a voice on Benton or something.
Maybe it would work.
Does he have grandkids? Make a good point. Yeah, unfortunately I don't have hiring decisions on that show. And not that I do on Ben 10, but I can make suggestions. But so he's the one who told me over dinner that night with my dad, over just hanging out with my dad, that if I was serious about wanting to get into television and movies, that I was right to go to USC for film school, because he said your peers there will be your peers in the industry someday. And that, not that I don't have other peers that I've met elsewhere, but that definitely turned out to be the case. For somebody like me with absolutely no connections, it was worth it when I was 18 to go out there. It was scary because from small town to big city, I was like, where do you buy toothpaste? I mean, honestly, I didn't know what are the names of the grocery stores out here. It's completely different chains of stores than what I was used to, and I didn't have a car, and just all this in a city like LA with no car. So I'm amazed when I look back at my own life. Did I really do that? Oh my God. How did my parents let me do that? But I'm so glad they did. And then, went to USC as a cinema television production major, and then proceeded to become a writer. But actually got a job puppeteering wherever Mike is back there, my buddy. You're over here. That's why I can't see you. I'm looking for you. At the Universal Studios tour, at the theme park, they had an American Tail live show, and we puppeteered the Dom DeLuise giant cat puppet. There were 3 of us inside, somebody in the body doing the head and both arms, and I was really interested in obviously the Muppets, and wasn't wanted to be a puppeteer. If I was going to be in production, what was I going to do? I knew I wanted to do something in kids TV in particular. So whenever I hear people saying like, well, I didn't really want to end up doing this. I wanted to write features, or I wanted to write drama. Oh, well, I'm doing. It's like you're slumming if you're in television instead of movies, and you're like, oh, you're double slumming if you're in children's television. Like, poor you. I'm like, no, this is exactly what I dreamed of doing. Like, this is it. This is awesome. I love this. And I lost my train of thought. Going from puppeteering to writing. I got my first job basically because you know how much puppeteering paid at the theme park. I was like, we gotta do something about this income. So that was a summer job, and then I went to work at Fox Kids Network in the 90s as an assistant answering the phones, and that was really my route in, other than USC, to get me out to LA from my small town. So I wasn't just getting off a bus in the middle of, hey, I'm in Hollywood, I'm going to be, people say, I'm not Jim Henson, I'm Kermit the Frog, say, I found a whole bunch of friends who all have the same dream. But there's calculated risk, and I think that's what my parents were, you're not just going to send your 18-year-old kid, have fun, just off into the world to, crazy wherever, any big city, especially if you're from a small town. And I certainly was a young 18 to be anywhere but more sheltered in a college campus than just, okay, I'm just going to arrive and try to be something in, Hollywood. Okay, that's so. I got this job answering the phones at Fox Kids, and it was through my old TA in my introduction to cinema class from USC Film School, and she was a grad student when I was an undergrad and remembered me, and she was working at Fox Kids then, and still in the kids business today, and she got me my first job answering the phones. While I was there answering the phones, is when they had their explosive growth. They had gone, became the #1 kids network, and the heyday of Power Rangers, and the X-Men, Saban's X-Men. And it was still a really small network. I mean, in terms of people who worked there, there's Margaret Lesh, who was our fearless leader, who's now the CEO of the Hub network, where our own My Little Pony resides. And she was my first boss. She was the president and CEO of Fox Kids. So that's been wonderful, just working for an old friend again. And I say old friend as in, as if we're peers in any way. She would appear on way down here. But while I was answering the phones there, so that's my day job. I guess that'd be my other advice to people. It's like, you have to get a day job. I'm like, Amy was mentioning 1-800-DENTIST. I was like, wow, that's how you transitioned from that into, that's amazing. Good for you. I'm like, I can't even believe, wow. I figured, okay, if I have to be sweeping the floor somewhere, I'll be doing it at Disney. Okay, if I'm going to answer the phones, I'll be at the #1 kids network. And because it was just such a small staff, but it exploded and became the #1 network so fast. And Margaret, was just so generous about letting us being everybody of my age that was there working as assistants, pretty much do anything we were qualified for. She said, as long as you're making money for Rupert Murdoch, you aren't in breach of contract. So, as long as whatever your efforts are. So we ended up, a whole bunch of us, ended up writing on the shows. I wrote in the kids magazine. I got to direct stuff back up at Universal at the theme park with the Universal Studios Monsters, because they just would be, we need somebody quickly to direct live action kids doing the fall campaign. I'm like, I went to film school, I know how to direct. Get down there. We need somebody to write, an educational thing about bugs, but it has to be in Beetlejuice's voice. And I'm like, I know how to do that. So I'm still answering the phone, juggling koosh balls at my desk, and worked my way up from answering phones to being a promo producer, doing the sales commercials for the shows in between, and sold them a show while I was sitting there at the desk that my friends and I created. So it's totally a being in the right place at the right time situation, but also putting yourself in the right place at the right time and being really ready. So like if somebody calls, if somebody's running by a desk while you're answering phones and says, we need somebody to direct something at Universal, say, I've been to USC Film School, I graduated from there, I actually know how to do this now. So just absolutely, it amazes me to tell my own story. And then I was on staff there just doing promos really, and writing on the shows. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was my very first show writing credit that was ever produced, the first iteration of Power Rangers, and then the second Power Rangers Zeo, I wrote some of those too. And all while holding this day job, because Margaret was so cool, and you just can't do that anymore. Like at Disney, there in other places, I shouldn't single them out, but if you were to try this route now, I wouldn't recommend it, because you'll be an assistant and you'll end up kind of going up the corporate ladder, not really the creative ladder. They don't let people kind of cross-pollinate. It's too bad. And Margaret was really smart that way, because we were all young and willing to work all these extra hours and just full of energy and stuff, and she got a heck of a lot of creative work out of a lot of us for not much money. We didn't mind, and so it was some of this, but we got all this experience, so it worked out really well. But I don't know that you can do it that way now. Like when people ask, well, how'd you get into the industry? And like I tell this massive story here, but like that's not a route that someone else can travel. It doesn't. But there's other things that are available to you guys now that we didn't have then. And obviously the internet thing I was just going to segue into. So 97, spring of 97, some friends of mine and I shot this short film, 10 minutes and 4 seconds long, called Troops, which is a cops parody set in the Star Wars universe. Yes. And yep. And we just made it like high 8 we shot on, and did everything ourselves. And it was folks that were friends in the promo department at Fox Kids, and it was all of us going, well, darn it, if someone would give us a chance, we could do something really cool. And no one's going to give you a chance, you just have to do it. And this was pre-YouTube, and there wasn't so much DIY stuff going on in terms of production like now. Oh my God, you can do this. And you guys have, we didn't have YouTube to put Troops. We premiered it that summer at San Diego Comic-Con '97, and people thought it was footage from the yet to be released episode 1 of Star Wars. They're like, what's it like to work at Lucasfilm or ILM? Like, we wish we knew, since none of us worked there, So that was sort of wow, we got a little bit of attention, and it happened to coincide with the explosion of internet access. We just, again, right place, right time. It was still dial-up back then. Way back in the olden days of dial-up, and people said they remembered, that I've met in the years since. Were like, oh my God, that was you guys. Remember trying to download it all night, and if you got a phone call, it would interrupt the download, and it would just take. That's why we put it in 2 acts, and it was initially uploaded in 2 pieces because it was just too, and it crashed all their servers. It was the Force.net was a bunch of kids at the University of Texas who since went on to become the guys, at least one of them, in charge of the real StarWars.com up at the ranch. So
has Lucas ever gone back and tried to edit that film then?
we've joked about doing our own Troop Special Edition. We've actually thought about adding some dewbacks and stuff.
Adding in some graphics.
Yeah,
and
just to do it. But yeah, that took off. I mean, Premiere Magazine at the time credited us with starting the entire entertainment online phenomenon content, and we're like, because you put something up there that it's the first viral video that just spread word of mouth, and everybody wanted to do it. And I skipped a vital part of the story. The guys that created South Park, Matt and Trey, were hanging around Fox Kids trying to get jobs as animators or sell something or do anything, and they had done this Christmas card on VHS tape, which was really obscene and really funny. Jesus versus Santa Claus, yeah, Spirit of Christmas. And we were all, it was pre-viral video and that you had to make a dub of a dub of a dub, and it was that VHS, getting worse and worse and worse. And that's how I saw it, was when people were making dubs of it, and then, what is this? Oh my God, it's hysterical. And they just gotten their deal, we didn't know what it was called yet, for South Park. And we're like, these guys made this short thing that's so funny that everybody's passing it around hand to hand, and now somebody's giving me a TV show. We need to pull a Spirit of Christmas. We got to do a short, funny thing that everybody's, gonna like and want to tell their friends about. And before we knew what the word viral video was, and we didn't even know about putting it online at that time. It was at Comic-Con in San Diego of '97 that we were approached by another friend, Chris Gore, who used to do Film Threat magazine, and now he's got his own independent film thing going on all these years. But he was the one that hooked us up with the Force.net and said, you guys got to put this online and get it out there. And took off. It was in Time Magazine, Newsweek that year. It went, I think, February of '98, because some places put the year as '98, but we really did it in '97. Hit the net in '98. But that March, it was like a 2-page spread in the Oscar edition of Entertainment Weekly, and we're like, we just made this thing. It's like a wedding video. Like, we didn't expect anybody was, people were gonna see it, like you guys. Like, I don't know you, and you saw this? Wow, okay. But that's the power of the internet, and even at its early stages there.
So coming from
you totally have that at your disposal now, I guess is where I'm going with it. It's like you guys, can make stuff and have, there's no Twitter to promote things, and now, you can have dozens of millions of people like that seeing your stuff, and network executives and people who make decisions for buying things suddenly, can see it. There's a lot of crap out there to wade through to get to the good stuff. That's the downside, but word of mouth still definitely helps, and people will check things out because so-and-so says to look at this.
Well, that's Sturgeon's law. 90% of everything is crap. But yeah, I was going to say then, coming now from, being in the industry and looking at what's happening with the internet, especially even the last, 7 years since YouTube started up, where do you see, just from your perspective, where do you see production going? Because I know there are people in this room who are, who have created their own series, who have created their own animations, who have,
It's all a question of where the money's going to come from still. Because we all worked for free. We made a $250,000 movie for $1,500, which we spent on location permits and food, I swear. Everybody it was a total labor of love that, everybody worked for free. And like the voice cast, which another reason we couldn't make any money off of Troops, because we used SAG actors who were friends. Camp Clark, who played Dave Fledermaus on Tick, did the Fargo. If I'm going to shoot you, if you move, I'm going to shoot you. That's him. Bill Farmer, who's was Goofy, is the announcer at the beginning, and the second act, the trooper that's like and he's so bored. That's Jess Harnell, who was Wacko Warner. Who's a good friend who came in to do that. I can't remember some other people, but it was all of us, including, and the sound design is like unsung. I'm getting off track here, but the unsung heroes kind of behind these things that we forget about. And even to bring it back around to My Little Pony, it's not just us writers. It's certainly Lauren and her vision, but there's so many other people that you never get to hear about. And Troops being only 10 minutes long is a great example. Everybody goes at the CG, because we integrated CG in with live action, and that was a big deal at the time. But the sound, if you shoot in the desert with stormtroopers wearing masks, it sounds like this for 10 minutes. So every sound you hear in that was created in the studio, and that was like 3 in the morning, you know, after we've all worked our day jobs at the network. So there's a lot of talented people involved in that, and it was written and directed by Kevin Rubio, who, longtime friend since then is my Emmy nominated writing partner on the song "May the Best Pet Win." So I made good use of his sense of humor and also his freaky knowledge of musical theater history. You remember Fluttershy's freaky knowledge of sewing, but Kevin has a freaky knowledge of musical theater history, and he's extremely talented. I'm happy to still be working with him.
Well, so I kind of wanted to then look at the show at hand here, the My Little Pony show.
Now we bring us to the present.
Yeah.
Well, I get into promo. Okay, let's zoom ahead. That's not as fun, but got into promos at Kids WB, freelancing promos, Disney, and everywhere else, and then was deciding to just shift the balance and stop writing one show here, one show there, an episode of Digimon or two, or Angela Anacondas, and I did. But not like a full-time living, just one little thing here and there. I was like, you know what? I got to make the jump at some point. I'm going to commit to this and write the shows full-time. And that really was 2004, Dual Masters, and then 2005, Tuttenstein and everything else from there. And I haven't looked back. It's been insane. And a lot of the same people from then keep cropping up. The Fox Kids people. It's like high school. I think I'm so glad I worked at Fox Kids Network in the 90s, because I run into all former Fox Kids. All roads lead back to Fox Kids, including on My Little Pony. Like, oh, wow, Margaret. Good thing we're all still friends. And some of our writers on Ben 10, certainly. Everywhere, Transformers, all these people. Like, oh yeah, Fox Kids.
Well, as a kid of the 90s, I can say that, Fox Kid was a really good procrastination technique when you had homework to do.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome, and sorry to your mom and dad.
And now as a graduate student, My Little Pony is a really good procrastination technique.
Mm-hmm. I can see.
But, I wanted to ask then
that.
about, for example, you wrote the episode, was it Suited for Success?
Yes.
You also wrote, Best Pet Win, maybe the Best Pet Win.
And the first one was the sleepover episode, Before You Sleep, originally titled Opposites Attack. So there's a lot of them, when you guys are coming up to me during the weekends, like, oh, you wrote what? I'm like, wait, say the episode? Which one is that? Oh, it changed titles, and characters changed names, too. Like, a couple of different folks have given me some of the trading cards, and it's awesome, because we don't get any free stuff, but one of them is Philomena the Phoenix, who I knew as Phoebe the Phoenix when I wrote her. And like, oh, Philomena. And Tank, awesome, my little tortoise that could.
I wanted to ask a specific.
Sorry.
I want to ask a specific question about Suited for Success. I've done multiple interviews with a lot of different production staff members, and almost every one of the storyboarders I've spoken to and a lot of the artists I've spoken to, that's their favorite episode of season 1. And the reason why is that they feel like it kind of reflects how they feel as artists. Poor Rarity tries to put in her best effort, and everybody comes in and edits and tweaks.
Lauren and Rob Renzetti and I said that in the room. As we got to that point in the script when the reprise of the song, and she's freaking out and having to make all these changes. Like, wow, this is a little thinly veiled. Our own frustration with, and somebody was just talking to me about that earlier today, in their own profession that has nothing to do with writing animation, and they deal with clients doing that. And do you make the changes they say they want, even though it's going to wreck things, or it's not necessarily even going to improve them one way or another? It's just pointless time and money wasting changes. Like, do you do that regardless of your profession? So that's cool that you guys actually caught that.
You said the word cool a moment ago, and there's a very famous phrase in the fandom that comes from that episode. Were you the writer of it needs to be 20% cooler.
Yeah, you know, I'd love to take credit for that because I love that line, but I really think either Lauren or Rob said it during the story meeting just as a funny thing, and I wrote it down and then put it in the song. Like, I think it wasn't necessarily supposed to be the line of dialogue during that spoken part of the song, but yeah, I think it was just one of those spitballing things of, oh, you know, this would be funny to say, this would be funny to say. I'm like, ooh, I know where I can put that. You know, I'm just sort of jotting down.
You could take credit for it if you wanted to.
I could, but I can't remember which one of them said it, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't me. I wish. I came up with other stuff.
Is there anything that you came up with that you're especially proud of in your episodes?
Well, I love Phoebe/Philomena's smoker's cough, and that they let us do that, the hack. Like, there's certain things that I'm like, should I really even go there? Are they just gonna, you know, cut that? And like that Lauren would be, oh yeah, you know, it's funny, do it. Don't self-censor, you know, let them tell you can't, you know, if it's funny, do it. And the fact that, you know, she's so sickly, you know, like falling apart and like, and the feathers and then, you know, bursts into flames and ashes. Like, they're gonna let us do this? And like, okay, and it turned out fantastic. And one of the great things on Pony is when you write something and you sort of you've envisioned it in your mind what the pacing is going to be and the timing of some of these jokes, and not just the voices are going to sound like, but how it's all going to play out. And sometimes when shows like Pony, you know, produced in Canada or wherever, and you're not there for the voice cast when they're recording, so you hand in your script and I watch it on TV with the rest of you, and you know, I'm surprised, you know, if and on other series, sometimes it's like, no, you killed the joke. It's not da 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 da. It's da 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 da. You know, like, and that's what makes it funny. And like, oh, they didn't say it right, and or things like that where you just go, oh, if I had only been there, I could have explained. You know, and they would have gone, oh. But Pony, they get it. It's amazing that everybody down the chain, even though we're all freelancers in LA and we don't necessarily even know each other, all of us, and the artists and the writers and everybody's, you know, sort of off doing their own thing. That's another thing about the internet, is that you don't have to be in the same room or even in the same country to work on the same project anymore. But for some reason with Pony, everybody's on the same page, like from the beginning. We're all picturing the same vibe for the show, the same tone, the same characters, you know, the way the characters speak and behave in certain situations. There was never like that I know of where there was a case of anybody, you know, out of step or anything, and that goes all along the line. You know, the composers, the animators, the designers, backgrounds, everything. That every step along the way just gets better and better and better. And you know, you hope that the next person down the assembly line from you will plus it, and it just, everybody at every job along the way, the voice cast, you know, on down to the final mix, you just plussed it, and you're like, oh my God, that's great. Oh, that's even better. Oh, that's even better. You know, it's better. I can't take credit. You want to take credit, like, oh, it all starts with the script. You know, and that's true, but there are a lot of other, you know, unsung heroes in this, especially on Pony, that just really went to town with this thing, and I'm so glad that you guys appreciate it, because, you know, I mean, it's kind of sappy to say, oh, I'm glad you had as much fun watching it as we had making it, but it's true, we all loved it. I mean, you guys, this is so much fun. Are we allowed to do this? This is awesome. And then to have it get embraced like this, you know, good, okay, we're not just crazy adults, everybody's crazy like us, awesome.
Well, and so speaking of crazy adults, when did you first hear about the Brony phenomenon, and have you really looked into it too much online? Like, have you seen a lot of what's available out there?
Not really. I'm trying to remember where I first heard. I guess it would have been people on Facebook, you know, friends of ours either on the show or Lauren or, you know, otherwise, you know, posting about it. But I didn't really, because we're not allowed to read fan fiction, and on this show or any on Ben 10 or anything, because we could be writing something on Ben 10 right now, for example, that if we're already doing something that's very close to what you're doing, and then it's like, oh, I was you know, Charlotte was on that board posting that she read this, and you know, and then you know, there's no way to prove it, you know, this, and then we end up with lawsuit time. So we're not allowed to even go there, you know, like it's just too, and there's not enough time in the day. There's a lot of fan fiction out there, and a lot of different subject matters. And I get Kim Possible, crowd I hear, and all this. Certainly the Star Wars fans and Pony and Ben 10. There's a lot of fan bases, a lot of people, and there's only 24 hours in the day, and we got to make the shows. We got to write it at some point. So, yeah, I don't. I'm trying to think of where I'm going. Oh no, I know, because somebody was asking me earlier, and I said I'd mention it on the panel about how they could break in. That's about it. Before I rudely interrupted myself, is how I would go about it now. Is there are all of these screenwriting fellowships that they have that they didn't used to have. Like ABC Disney does a screenwriting fellowship, and you can look them up online, where they pay you a stipend to take this program. It's very competitive to get in, but if you do, then you have, especially if you're moving from away, to move to LA, I think it's like $50,000 or something for a year that they pay you, so that you can then do this, and then they place you on a show.
What was it
To
called?
write. ABC Disney, it's a screenwriting fellowship. They have a directing fellowship. There's sort of all these different, like I said, it's extremely competitive to get into, but I wish it was around to get into when I needed it. Like, maybe I'll go do it now. They have drama writing and sitcom writing and comedy, all these different facets. Nickelodeon does a great program like that. Not internships, but actually, paid positions. It might still be called internships, but the fellowships is what you should look for. Warner Brothers definitely has one. I think you have to pay them, though, to be in it. I've known a few people who did it, though, and they're working, so it's kind of depends on, if it's worth it to. But that's what I do, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I'm joking now, if you have writing samples, send them to everybody over at ABC Disney, Screenwriting Fellowship is like, Charlotte, why'd you tell me people said it? But yeah, I mean, that's what I would do. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure that the guys here, the girls here, have some questions for you. So I think we got
I
time
hope
to
so,
maybe
because
about
I'm
10,
running out of
15
things to
minutes.
say. My life is
So-
only taking us up to this point, so I'm done.
I'm gonna.
But enough about me. More about me.
In the front here.
Which pony episode was easiest to write for you?
Easiest.
Although we might be having tag difficulty.
There's this. Okay, there's a switch on the side. It says internal, external. There we go.
Pause
Get it?
for this.
But there's also
Difficulties.
other people recording as well. So.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
So don't say it's been
Ready?
off the whole time.
No.
It'll
no.
give me a moment to think of what my easiest one. I almost would say it's May the Best Pet Win. And you wouldn't think so because of that song that takes up the whole first act, but that's what made it easy. It's because the song took up the whole first act. So that's less pages of screenplay you have to write, even though I did put in specific actions and things that I couldn't believe they let us do. Like Fluttershy throws Squirrely into the air before you know that about it. I'm like, but can we do that? Yes, go for it. Okay, could she actually get in an avalanche? And woe is me. I didn't realize it until just this morning when people were asking, and I was sort of thinking about it for the first time. Amy, you were mentioning at your panel how Lauren tried to match us up with the types of stories that you'd be strongest for, and Megan was wondering, what does that say about her? And I'm thinking, what does that say about me? I was always writing the pony characters that are just on the verge of nervous breakdown for some reason. They don't quite cross over, and they never break character, but they're really pushed to the edge.
I think that's why Megan writes the part where they do go over.
Yeah,
the edge.
maybe. I don't know.
Well, I was going
Pretty
to say too,
mild-mannered.
the song in May the Best Pet Win. The song is really almost like a Rodgers and Hammerstein kind of musical. Is that how you
Mhm.
intended it?
Yeah, Kevin and I definitely. I mean, it's got to take up. It has a lot of telling the whole first act, the story, and in terms of the spoken parts of it as well as the song, that's definitely something I wanted. And Daniel did a fantastic job, above and beyond what we could have imagined. And storyboard artists too. That's a fantastic sequence. And I can't give enough credit to other people for making us look good, because it turned out amazing. I'm like, we wrote that. Again, pinch me. Is this my life? It must be dreaming. Good question. You're gonna call on somebody? Okay. I'm not calling anybody.
When you were making tropes, I noticed that one of the props
for when they were trying to find the droids?
Tom Servo.
Tom Servo from Mystery Science Theater
Yes.
2000. How did you guys get your hands on that?
We were actually supposed to get an R2-D2, and you know what the story goes? That was a Kevin thing where somebody was, because we were just borrowing things from friends, you know, and had zero budget, and it was, he couldn't come through with the R2-D2, but he had, when Kevin went to pick it up, he had a Tom Servo, and we were like, oh, that'd be funny, let's get that.
Was there a chance of like a crow being in there as well?
He didn't have, well, they didn't have one, so no. This is something where they had it in the warehouse, you know, it's like, oh, okay. It would have been cool, but
Oh, yeah.
we didn't have it at our disposal, you know. It's the, oh, go ahead. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna.
Oh,
you,
no,
you calling people, you're moderating.
I'll just,
Got the big sister thing going on, I'll try to take over if you let me.
It's your panel. You can if you'd like.
When you were writing the My Little Pony episodes, what episode taught you the most about how to write a successful My Little Pony episode?
Wow.
Like,
Hmm.
for example, everyone has that moment where they write their first script, and that's the one that they remember the most, not because it was
Clicks.
good, but because it taught them the most. Or what
Hmm.
what pony episode made you learn the most about?
It might have been the first one I did, The Look Before You Sleep, just because, well, it was the first one for me, and it was so early on that the characters, they were distinctly and thoroughly developed as individuals, which was amazing and awesome to write, but a lot of their like quirky character traits hadn't been fleshed out yet in those first few episodes. You know, as we know them today, they had plenty of quirky character traits, but we kind of, as we got to know them better as writers and as viewers, you know, you can see them sort of, we get to see that aspect of their personality. And I think, yeah, Look Before You Sleep, getting to put Applejack and Rarity at each other's throats like that gave us being Lauren and Rob and I, the opportunity to really get to know those characters. What will happen? You made an observation, I think, during Amy's panel, and I think you were actually conflating something that somebody told you about putting a character up a tree and throwing rocks at them.
I
That's
probably was.
actually part of screenwriting advice for first, second, third act, and the idea of the first thing you have to do is get your character stuck up in a tree, then you spend the second act throwing rocks at them, and then you got to get them down from the tree.
Okay.
And that's a famous piece of writing advice. And definitely putting two characters together in a small space, two characters that do not get along, is putting them up in a tree and throwing rocks at them. And nothing but fun can come from that.
Well, literally in that episode, they were in
There was a tree. That's
Yeah.
true. Like, are we camping? Is this
And then
count
you
as
threw
camping?
another tree
Yeah.
at them.
That's right.
All right, Coco back there.
So when you were writing Suited for Success, there's a scene that follows the song where Fluttershy comes back
Mm.
and has Rarity redo her dress
Yeah,
again.
she's real
And
shy
she's
about
really reluctant to tell Rarity what she thinks is wrong with it.
Yeah.
And then she just goes off on this spiel about every little possible detail
Yes.
that's wrong. How much research went into doing that?
I want to say that was Lauren, who is into sewing heavily and makes her own characters and her own line of toys, I think,
Mhm.
that she designed.
So she pretty
So-
much wrote all the dialogue?
Or not all the dialogue, but definitely gave me the buzzwords and things, because I don't know, I don't know all the, certainly to spout off with the freaky knowledge of sewing that Fluttershy has, yeah. That one didn't come from me, but having her do that did come from me. That I can take credit for, the joke itself. But the specifics, no.
Which was hilarious.
Thank you. And that's another case where I loved writing the characters where they're not pushed to the edge of nervous breakdown, but where they almost break character. You know, she's so reticent. And, no, it's fine. Well, okay. You know, like that's fun.
Kind of pushing the boundary.
Yeah, that's it. Pushing the boundaries and not pushing it so they're not behaving like themselves and they're still speaking like themselves, but just pushing them out of their comfort zone a little bit. Again, nothing but fun can come from that.
Hannah.
I was a Twitter follower named Osaka Jack.
Oh no.
Was asking what character you felt was most difficult to write.
I knew he'd get a question in. He always gets a question in.
You know, I can tell you which one I thought would be the most difficult to write and turned out not to be. Rarity. I thought at first I would have a really difficult time writing because she's just a girly girl type. I'm like, I'm not that girly girl type, really. Not like the whole super over the top hair and makeup type. I chew my fingernails. I don't do the manicure thing. It's like am I going to be able to do this without having her come across as stereotypical Barbie one-note character? And no, she's one of my favorites. Just turned out to be one of my favorites to write because she can get so pushed over the edge. Yeah, so I'm trying to think who turned out to. I don't know. Who's the hardest to write?
Well, I know some people have said Fluttershy is the hardest to write.
I love Fluttershy. She's a ton of fun because of that, where she's reticent until she's not. Yeah. What? I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I was going to say Celestia because that was another one that I thought would be really difficult to write for me because somebody like Twilight I'm so much like that character that it's uncomfortable. And Celestia, I was thinking, kind of like Rarity, and she's sort of got a very specific way of speaking and a little elevated. And no, she was a ton of fun, and Bird on a Hoof reminiscing here, like, oh yeah, that was fun. Good times. Nobody else?
This guy over
okay.
here has been
I'll
asking.
keep vamping. Oh, okay.
Personal question. Favorite pony, favorite episode, why?
Wow. Okay. Favorite pony, I have to say Twilight. Because, that's with the living in the library, the books, and during the slumber party episode when I had her do everything by the book, and we have to have fun. We officially have fun, and if we don't do these things, this. And yeah, I had people telling, that seems a little bit familiar. Like, hey, what do you mean by that? Yeah, and I like purple. But yeah, I'd have to say Twilight. My favorite episode, I'm going to say May the Best Pet Win because I got an Emmy nomination. Woohoo! My second, I'm a 2-time loser and proud of it.
Well, it's better than that.
Fairly Odd Parents, we were there for that too. Amy, yeah. And then why? That's why.
You got time for me? One or two more questions.
Oh, I took up all the time. I didn't
that
think
guy
there'd be
back
that many questions, so I figured, I better
I have a
fill.
question. Which is more fun to write? Is it better to write, fun to write the 2 or 3 ponies, or is it funner to write all of them at once?
It's more fun to be able to write just a handful. I think that smaller.
Before you sleep.
Yeah, but even something like May the Best Pet Win. They're all in it, but it's really only about so you focus on a couple of characters at a time, and there's not a scene. There's one scene at the end where they're all there, but in terms of bantering back and forth and who's trying to get what, everybody has to want in any writing, and who wants what in this scene, and you can't just fill the room with every character you have in the show and just have them all stand there and do nothing. There's only so much time. You've got a couple of minutes to do this scene, and then we're going to move on to the next location and next story point. So, yeah, I kind of prefer to. It's more fun to explore a few at a time than try to be all things to everybody and clutter it up, like I'm doing now by over talking over and over and over.
It's your panel. That's the idea.
Repetitively and repeatedly.
Okay.
So I'd like to start off by thanking you for everything
Aw,
and saying
you're welcome for everything.
This
that I
is
do.
one of those shows where it's evident, like you said, every step of the process, everyone loves what they're doing. You can tell the entire staff enjoys.
So
making
glad it
ponies.
comes through because we definitely feel that way.
And since I don't have a very good show-related question, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck?
Oh gosh.
That's the weirdest question I have ever heard.
That's an excellent question. Ask
Ever.
me that on Twitter because I want other people to hear that question.
I
That's
know that
cool.
Barack Obama did not answer this question, but Gary Johnson and Jill Stein did in their Reddit AMAs.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
Okay, I'm just gonna say that I've been doing interviews for
I don't want to be trampled,
this
but
for like what, a year now, and
Are pretty smelly.
I've moderated questions for panels and for Michelle Creeper's Saturday
You have
Night
to
Songs.
actually
I've seen
fist
hundreds
fight?
and hundreds of questions. That is by
Do
far
I
the
have weapons?
weirdest I have ever heard.
Is this like the caveman versus the astronaut thing?
I feel like my
is it
brain just broke.
hand to hand, or is it?
It's like a Zen riddle. You hear that?
Like,
and there
I
are
mean,
new
basically, can I distract
possibilities
the
of
ducks
reality.
with breadcrumbs? Is what I'm really trying to ask. I just
And
throw a
she
bunch of
seriously
breadcrumbs on the other
answered
side
it.
of town and like, here, ducks, here, ducks. Leave a little trail. I am from Boston, so you know the.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Make way for ducklings.
Make way
is
for ducklings.
Imprinted in all our brains at birth.
I have to shake
That's
your hand for
awesome.
answering that seriously.
Well, these are the kind of questions we often ask ourselves in a writer's room just to pass the time. Well, especially if you're stuck on a story, or just in the morning, people are getting coffee, and you're kind of, you know, if you're waiting on an executive, somebody, and you know, you're not just, what'd you do over this weekend kind of conversation. Sometimes people will do a, you know, I started a thing, who would win in a war, the Smurfs versus the Keebler Elves. And there were some excellent defenses. Keebler Elves have manufacturing.
Yeah.
It would take a flip. This is my husband came up with. He won. Keebler Elves have manufacturing. It would take a flip of a switch to go from manufacturing cookies to manufacturing weapons of mass destruction. Also, Keebler Elves have their factories within a hollow tree.
Yeah.
Not just a hollow tree, possibly many hollow trees. Possibly the hollow tree right in downtown Smurfville, but they don't even realize it's right there. So,
Well, and you
yeah.
could go at it from an economic standpoint. I've heard that that Smurfs are an allegory for communism,
Well,
and
somebody did
that Papa
an
Smurf
argument
looks like
about
Marx.
the Smurfs having an unbreakable code because they have such limited language. You know, Smurf, you know, they all know what that means, and you know, nobody else does. And there was all these great arguments going back and forth, but manufacturing won out. And
Smurfs are
stealth.
valuable because Gargamel wanted to turn them all into gold.
And they also only have one female, so they're going to have a limited population growth as they end up getting killed off. That's right. That's right. She was evil. Introduced into their all-male utopia in society.
Well, I think we got to wrap this up.
I know,
Over
and on
time.
that wonderful note, yeah, it's like, oh, let's get into the seedy underbelly of the Smurfs, but